Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast on pay transparency. Pay is a topic that is often considered taboo, yet it is a question that is in the minds of many. Am I being compensated fairly? Pay transparency aims to address this question, and soon it will be mandated by law. Today we will discuss the legal requirements, strategic implications, benefits and practical challenges of pay transparency. Joining us for this discussion are Eva de Vries from PwC Legal, a lawyer specialized in employment law, Aurore Zadeling, a reward specialist, and myself, Eva de Vries, as an HR tech specialist. So, as said, pay transparency will soon be mandated by law. The EU indeed introduced measures to improve pay transparency in order to enable employees to claim their rights to equal pay. Aurore, what is the impact of this new regulation for organizations?
Significant. Yeah, the impact of the directive will be significant for companies. First of all, they are required to be transparent on their pay setting and career path of their employees. That means that their workers should understand the criteria that are used to determine their pay, salary increase, and promotion. Further, and that is something that companies are not always aware of, it is now forbidden to request salary history to a candidate. Secondly, the directive introduces a right to information. So that means employees have the right to request the average pay of their colleagues performing the same work or work of equal value. It is therefore important for employers to be able to determine those jobs that have equal value. And this will enable employees to detect whether they are underpaid, or whether they are potentially facing discrimination and take actions. In addition, companies with more than 100 employees will now be mandated to report on their gender pay gap. They will have to do so every year for larger organizations and every 3 years for smaller companies. And if the pay gap exceeds 5%, this will trigger a joint pay assessment in collaboration with the employee representative bodies. The assessment is a thorough review of the pay structure of the company, where the goal is to determine the root causes of the gap and assess the effectiveness of remediation measures already taken by the organization.
Yeah, and also from a legal perspective, the directive introduces various changes. I will spare both you and our listeners to go through them all. But maybe one of the most important things is that the directive really introduces minimum standards on pay transparency to really empower employees, to enable them to claim their right to equal pay. So if an employee claims that they have suffered gender pay discrimination, it will be up to the employer to prove that they didn't violate the EU rules. So there's a real clear shift of the burden of proof, which is really interesting, of course, because if the employer cannot provide this proof, then the employee can receive compensation, really including full recovery of arrears salary and related bonuses or payments in kind. So in summary, I would really say that the EU Pay Transparency Directive affects various aspects of an organization, ranging from pay philosophy, recruitment, to pay setting, pay progression, as well as reporting on the gender pay gap.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa, a game changer for many organizations. Are all employers concerned by pay transparency?
Yes, the EU Pay Transparency Directive applies to all employers, whether it being public or private, and regardless their size or the industry in which they operate. It also covers all employees, but also job applicants. But do note that the reporting on the gender pay gap specifically applies to organizations with more than 100 employees.
That means a lot of upcoming changes. Luckily, organizations still have time to prepare, right?
Yeah, the EU Pay Transparency Directive should be implemented in national law by 2026. So it gives a company a time frame to adapt and to prepare. But it's important to be aware that implementing pay transparency is a journey, and it cannot be achieved overnight. You cannot move from pay secrecy to a transparent approach on compensation without a careful preparation. Otherwise, you may face business disruption. The timing to prepare will depend, of course, on the size of the company, the level of transparency that is currently living within the company, the culture and maturity. But in any case, pay transparency is not something that can be delayed anymore.
I fully agree with you, Aurore. Changes take time, meaning that from an HR viewpoint, 2026, it's already tomorrow. Well, where to start then?
Well, we help our clients in this transition by following a step-by-step approach, and we adapt a roadmap based on their maturity level. But in general, I think involving other stakeholders is your very first step, because your journey towards pay transparency begins with executive support and establishing the right culture. Leadership awareness and endorsement is crucial for a successful initiative. So the right culture ensures alignment with organizational values, encourages open communication, and promotes a commitment to fairness and equality. And also, on the other hand, really involvement of your employee representative bodies will also be key in this trajectory. Because, Aurore, you already hinted at it before, the employee representatives play a really important role. It can range from the right to ask for more information or clarifications on the provided information, collaborating on remediation measures, up to being able to initiate legal proceedings before a court of law. They even benefit from the same protection against dismissal or adverse treatment as the impacted employees do. So clear communication, early involvement of the employee representative bodies throughout the entire process will really be essential.
Clearly, HR and reward professionals are not alone in this journey, and stakeholders' engagement will be crucial to deploy pay transparency. Maybe I'm taking a step back here, but I'm wondering whether pay transparency will have the same meaning for all companies. Aurore, what's your view on this?
Yeah, so from a business perspective, there are indeed different approaches to pay transparency. The first approach is really a compliance-driven approach. Their company will see transparency as a risk management strategy. And therefore, the goal will be to mitigate the risk of an equal pay claim. That can be the financial or reputational risk. The second approach is really incorporating the pay transparency strategy to the sustainable strategy of the company. There, the goal is really to achieve gender equality in the workplace. In that case, pay transparency is just seen as the right thing to do, and companies will go beyond legal requirements. Between these two approaches, of course, organizations will have the flexibility to determine the best approach for their company, as long as they comply with the minimum requirements of the directive, of course.
I fully agree with you, Aurore. There is no one-size-fits-all approach in implementing pay transparency.
No, that's correct. We really help our clients to find the right balance between their imperatives. The second step in the pay transparency journey is crucial, and it specifically involves HR data. That's actually your cup of tea, Eva, right?
Yes, it is. Relying on accurate and up-to-date payroll and HR data is essential for all subsequent steps. Organizations must ensure that their data is complete and reliable. Collaboration between IT, HR, and legal professionals is necessary to ensure seamless access to HR data while adhering to local data protection and privacy laws. Actually, what I see in practice is that a lot of companies on, for instance, payroll technology in SAP, they still need to migrate from on-premise to cloud. And there my advice is well to start early with the process and take this EU Pay Directive already included in the preparation before starting their IT journey. So once our data are cleaned and our processes to ensure compliance with local privacy laws are in place, what is the next step, Aurore?
Yeah, well, once the necessary groundwork is done, collaborate with our clients to implement pay transparency. And it starts with a readiness assessment to understand where the company is currently today. So we conduct a quantitative analysis, so a statistical analysis, but also qualitative analysis to identify any existing pay disparities and areas that need to be addressed. And depending on the outcome of the first exercise, it can be necessary to review the pay structure of the company, the job evaluation and grading system, or make salary adjustments and update the policies. Of course, we should not forget the leadership in this exercise. Their support is crucial, and the culture is also a very important element for a successful pay transparency initiative. Lastly, closing the pay gap, that's a continuous effort. The pay gap is an evolving target, moving target, so it's really important to measure, monitor, and adapt on a regular basis.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I really like to zoom in on the policy part, because you will need to establish a framework for pay transparency. So this, of course, involves drafting a policy which will detail how employees can exercise their right to information, outlining responsibilities of the different stakeholders, setting internal timelines. And it's also important to establish a grievance procedure to address potential concerns that the employees might have or the employee representative bodies on their pay and mitigate risks if needed, of course.
Thank you for sharing, both Jessica and Aurore, how you approach pay transparency implementation with your clients. Personally, I'm convinced about the benefits of pay transparency, but some of my clients express concerns about it, fearing that it might demotivate employees if they discover they are paid less than their colleagues. What do you think about it?
Yeah, despite being a taboo, employees speak about their pay. And it's important to be aware that they are interested to know whether they are paid fairly, not really how much others earn. So without a clear communication and pay transparency, they might speculate on the reason of pay differences and feel there is unfairness somewhere. And this can lead to lack of trust, demotivation, and higher turnover. In fact, pay transparency can have a positive effect on employee motivation and engagement. Pay transparency allows employees to understand their pay and how they can evolve. And this can enhance their trust in the organization and increase their satisfaction.
I understand your point, Aurore. Another issue raised by my clients is how to distinguish their top performers without creating a perception of unfairness.
Well, equal pay does not mean that everyone should be paid the same. And I would like to take an example here. Football. You know Cristiano Ronaldo, Mbappe, Messi.
Yes.
They have something in common. Guess what? They are paid more than their teammates. Their salary is public, there is no secrecy there. And their teammates are therefore well aware that they are paid less than these players. Have you ever seen a strike or a disruption during a match for this reason? Why? But there is a clear link between performance and reward in the football world. You have very detailed statistics during the match, which are also public, and if you are the top performer of your team, your remuneration is higher. And that illustrates that the remuneration framework should be well defined. What do you reward with your base pay? Why do you decide on a pay increase? What do you reward with variable components? So your remuneration should rely on a clear performance management system.
Okay, I didn't expect that football could give me a lesson today, but my son will be pleased. So thank you for this enriching explanation. My personal takeaway is that pay transparency requires careful preparation and that organizations may expect challenges on the way. So, to conclude, Aurore, Jessica, would you like to add something before we close up?
Yeah, I would like to say that if you haven't already, start now to prepare. 2026 will arrive sooner than you think, and as we said before, implementing changes requires time. And as you said, Eva, the companies, they will face challenges along the way. But the good news is that they are not alone in this journey.
Yeah, and for me, I would really like to end on a positive note, because I know that a lot of companies feel that this is yet another obligation that's being imposed on them. But I would really like to encourage them to grasp this opportunity to really upgrade their comp and ben strategy. After all, a successful pay transparency strategy can have a positive impact for the organization, leading to more engaged workforce, a more motivated workforce, and can even positively impact turnover rates. And last but definitely not least, it can also really contribute to creating a fairer society by addressing gender pay gaps and promoting equality. And this can also be very valuable in execution of your sustainability strategy. So I would say, don't wait, get started and try to keep it positive.
Thank you, Aurore and Jessica, and thank you to all our listeners. Stay tuned for the next episode.